Welcome to the show. Today we have a good friend of mine on, Daniel de Blois. He is a former investment banker turned entrepreneur. Danny, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you. Just so everybody knows, Daniel trains with me at my boxing gym. We've been friends for a few years now. He trains with me a couple times a week. And, he's an awesome guy. He has a lot of insight, very intelligent, very successful. So I thought bringing him on the show would be a delight for you guys and myself, just to sit here and just get to know Danny a little bit more. So, Danny, tell everybody a little bit more about yourself, your background.
Well, I used to work in investment banking, and then I turned into helping individuals and businesses accomplish their goals, mostly, increase their revenue, decrease their costs. I built a lot of mathematical models in finance to help banks make decisions, really.
Okay.
So my background really is in statistics and math. So at a certain point, when the world, a few years ago, it turned into, more quantitative as opposed to qualitative.
Right.
My expertise was needed in
Right.
this decision making. So
Right.
what I do most of the time is just create models, mathematical models to help, to make decisions. Really.
Right. Okay. And let me ask you, so how old were you when you got into the financial?
Oh, very young. I started working in finance in my early 20s.
Early 20s.
Yeah. So in different, I used to teach financial classes to potential financial advisors.
Right. Okay.
So I taught the Series 7, 63, and those classes, and then those turned into like sales classes, and then I taught investment strategies and sort of thing. That was a long time ago, but yes. And then I worked in investment banking, in municipal finance, and then an issuance on the state government. Mostly in housing financial.
Okay.
Housing financial. That was a long time ago, but yes.
Right.
So, housing, multifamily, single family. Yeah.
Right. You were telling me about that once. We were talking about real estate. And while you're in this industry, is this something that you loved, you had passion for?
Yes. I mean, I really enjoy, well, first of all, money is good. Mm-hmm. So what really attracted me at first was money. But I went when I was 20. I did a tour in the New York Stock Exchange, and I didn't know what to do in my life back then.
Yeah.
I was in college, so but the New York Stock Exchange changed me because it was just the action, people just screaming, and it was just magical. I said, "Wow, I feel alive. Right. I want to understand this." Back in the day, this is in the mid-90s, so the internet really wasn't there. So, you couldn't really Google, what's a stock or a bond?
Right.
So I spent a lot of time, reading a lot, about what stocks, bonds, mutual funds were. And I remember going to Barnes & Noble at that time, because I spent a lot of times in Barnes & Nobles and in libraries. Right. And I picked up, I want to buy my first mutual fund, and I picked up a book with all the mutual funds that existed at the time. There were only 6,000.
Right. Wow.
So
you dove in.
Now,
you loved the energy. You were like, I need to learn this industry. Yeah. And how old were you when you said, okay, this is it?
Like 20, 21.
Young. You were young.
Yes. So.
And that's so.
And then I was interested in other things, which was really productivity and how one motivates oneself to do things.
Right.
So to take action, and that allowed me to do the other part of what I do right now, which is helping people do things.
Right.
What motivates people. So, and I think that's why we are, we're so connected, because you're very inspirational. You're always doing so many cool things.
Thank you.
And, so I'm the same thing. I'm always like want to learn something new.
Right. We always have these talks, and in the gym during our workouts and after, about how to better ourselves, or different techniques that you tell me to practice or things that we mutually understand. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show too, because I wanted you to explain some of these strategies for better thinking for people. Like you were talking to me about the other day, the values. We didn't really get too deep into it, but if you could touch on that, that'd be great. You know, it's something that I think people would be able to use in their daily life.
Yes, I think before we get into values, I think it's important what's happening right now in society is that, we have so much information and we're always looking out. We're always out, right? On the internet, newspaper. We rarely get to go within.
Mm-hmm.
And at a really young age, I kind of just learned that you have to go within, to find answers. To go within, you have to be comfortable with, first of all, you have to learn how to love yourself. You have to learn who you are, right? Where do you got all this? That is who you are, where you got all this values, beliefs, okay, whatever we think we are. So that introspection, I think, is very important.
Right.
And at a really young age, I really went and, I did a lot of different kind of trainings, I did a lot of meditation to actually learn who I was as a person, right? Before I could change it and make it better.
Okay.
So it's sort of like the metaphor of like you have this rock, and then you can actually, make it into a
diamond.
Yes, you make it into a diamond. So,
Right.
but you need to really know what is this rock about? What kind of materials I'm working with, and then you find the tools, and the tools are out there. But I think the first step is to know who you are within. So,
I agree.
And that presupposes also that you have to have some sort of a desire. And so, where is this desire to do better comes from?
Right.
And is it you born with that? Because some people don't really want to get better. Or some people they need. So you really have to go. Meditate upon this. And meditation is not easy because, especially right now in society, we're pushed to look out. Read this book, learn this, take this class. As opposed to like do activities that you push you to, like boxing.
Right.
Is very introspective. Like what the previous person that you interview, going and do a marathon. That you have to go within.
Right.
Most of it. So
that's important. We do discuss that, but I actually see, people in all walks of life, either on social media, in person, people in my life that live a life of like not fulfilling, and they're negative. And I wonder why they don't just not seek external like approval, or they, a lot of, either men or women, they need a significant other to feel whole. But like you're saying, you need to learn how to love yourself first.
Right.
I think that's super important. So that's just something that I've noticed actually recently. Like people need to love themselves first in order to really be loved by the person that eventually is going to be in their life. So you just said that. That's why I just touched on it.
So yes, I think that's extremely important. I think that's the first step. You really have to get to know yourself and then fall in love with yourself first. And after you fall in love with yourself, then you can actually other people will
attract to you,
be attracted, because that self-love,
it's contagious.
It's contagious,
and to the right people.
Right.
It's to the right people.
And I learned something doing surfing and boxing, a lot of these modalities, that when one is scared, right, your breathing changes your thinking, and your thinking changes what you feel, and your feeling changes, you attract what you feel.
Yes.
So when you fall in love with yourself, right, you love yourself so much, then you will attract that love, whether it is business opportunities, people, friendship, and so I think all comes down to actually work on that breathing.
Right.
And only through, meditation, yoga, boxing, surfing, a lot of these modalities that are very introspective, as opposed to like team sports, like team sport push you to be outside. Well, I gotta win, I have to compete.
Right.
So it's a different kind of modality, to get to know yourself. So
yeah, I've actually learned so much about myself through boxing. As a young kid, all till today, boxing has been something that has grounded me. As a teenager, young kid, suffered, not crazy depression or, not crazy anxiety, but I had these moments. And every time I had these moments, where would I run to? The boxing gym. Yeah. Where would I find my solace? On the heavy bag, shadow boxing in the mirror. I learned how to just be one with myself, find that rhythm, find that just that zen. That was my zen. So I feel like everybody needs to have that zen, and they need to try different things to discover what their zen is. Whether it be meditation, boxing, like you said.
And for everybody, it's different. I don't think there's like we like to think we're living in the industrial age, so they give us a formula. Yeah. And we think, your formula might work with me, or vice versa.
Right.
I think everybody has to go out there and try different things, and they find their own formula, and they say, okay, this one worked for me, and and one changes all the time, so it might not work in the future, so you have to do other things. Like recently, I think 2 years ago, I was very depressed, and like extremely depressed, and one of the things that helped me change the depression was like building things,
Right.
So I took in like projects, like I put shingles all over my house, by myself, and everybody thought I was crazy. But through this, and I never knew the difference between a screw and a nail before this,
Right.
So I was like this guy, like asking questions to the building stores, and they were like, what is this idiot doing? Right. I was in such a specific questions, but the process of like putting the shingles, and building things kind of like recover. I went back to like my, I don't know, my original substance.
Right.
And then I say, okay, so now I can change, and I can do something different. And I think that's important. It's important to really, one, constantly and never ending finding new ways
right.
to find happiness.
Right.
Because happiness is not static. Nothing's static.
Right.
Everything is constantly changing. I love the COVID now because, people are being forced to stay home.
Yeah.
So now, you get to see the people who constantly and never ending looking for out, they're struggling. And people who are, are decided, well, fuck it, I'm sorry. Am I allowed to say that?
No, you're good. It's fine. This is
so
it's okay.
I need to really survive this, whatever it takes, they find creative ways like you build this. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And that's what really success is. Success is constantly and never ending evolving and finding ways to be happy.
Adapting to your circumstances.
Correct. Yeah. So I think it's a challenging time for sure. And also, I think it's also a great time to, anybody can be motivated in great times,
Absolutely.
That's easy. But being motivated in challenging times, that's a different story.
Right.
That's when you really know who you are, So, as we go into the future, no matter what happens, you always know, okay, so it doesn't matter because I will be able to figure it out.
Right. If you can figure it out now, when times are easy, you better know how to figure it out because it's going to come natural.
Right.
It came natural for me to be like, what am I going to do? And I was constantly thinking, what am I going to do? What do I love? What do I enjoy? And I put all those things together and I said, this is it. This is it. And I'm glad I'm doing this. This is just so fulfilling, even though it's nerve-wracking at times for me. As you know me, we discuss my anxieties and stuff, but it's so fulfilling. And then when I go home, I take all the film and the audio and the process of editing it. That's another fulfillment in itself. So yeah, people could find it. People could find their creativity in hard times. They can.
I think so. And I think that feeling that you're feeling of your hand shaking, that is when I measure that I'm in the right place. Mm-hmm. Whenever I've been in situations that my hand shakes and, I don't know what I'm going to do, I know I'm in the right place, you see? Because A, I'm going to learn, B, I'm going to break through something, right? And C, when I come out, I'm going to be happier. Wow, that was great. it's a great thing. I can't believe I did that. You know?
Yeah.
Sort of like sparring, like I mean, for me it was, I'm never been in situations like that. But
Right.
when I started sparring, it was like, oh my God, what's happening?
What's going on?
And my hand is shaking, I'm nervous, but I wouldn't say anything to anyone, you know what I mean? I
Right.
started.
You controlled that emotion.
Right. So, and I learned how to be okay in the moment, and now it's a meditation. I really love it.
Right. It's a different adrenaline, and it's a different workout. Like any workout you do, when you spar, you sweat 10 times more.
Yeah.
You get tired a lot quicker. So when people spar often, they get in shape quicker. As boxers, I noticed that when people are training.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So that's great that you actually stepped in the ring and took on that challenge.
Right.
And you've been doing this for a few years now, sparring.
Yes. So it's been a few years. Yeah.
And do you feel more comfortable in there? Like,
oh no, I don't think so. No,
no, you're not more relaxed yet.
I'm still nervous, but
right.
I love it. Yes,
we always get nervous. We always know. I'm still nervous when I spar, but it's a different type of nervous. But do you feel relaxed compared to the first time you sparred?
No, for sure. I mean, first of all, the first time I did, I don't know how many rounds, but the last round I stopped 30 seconds before it ended. I said, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And I got home. And I felt so terrible. Like I feel so ashamed of myself. I can't believe I stopped it. And everybody probably don't even care. But
Nobody cares.
I was like, I can't believe this. I stopped. And then I realized I was never going to stop another one ever again.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it was only 30 seconds. But 30 seconds sparring is just like...
It's a long time.
Long time. So,
especially when you're tired and it's your first time doing it.
So I never did again. And I kind of enjoy it. What I do, though, is that I kind of like... I learn... So I believe, this is a big belief that I have, that whole thing that no pain, no gain. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in that,
right.
I believe no pleasure, no gain. So I constantly and never ending put myself in situations that I love to do. And I know if I'm loving it, right, I want to do more. And if I don't love it, like there's certain things you don't love. But I push me, what's good about this? What do I love about this? And I start thinking.
Right.
So, and then I kind of link pleasure to doing that activity, right? Like I didn't love doing the shingles at first, right? I mean, I'm outside, I finished up in December 12th, so it was snowing. But I love the idea of like I'm building something up, I'm learning. So I kind of like start thinking about what do I love, and I journal a lot. That's one thing I do. So I journal about the experience. So when I sparring for me, I just was like, well, this is my home. The ring is my home. This is my house. I love this place. I start talking to myself that way.
Right.
I start loving the people I was sparring with.
Right.
Building relationship. There was a lot of hugging at first, even though some of this guy didn't want to hug me back. It's like, what's wrong with this guy? but it was for me because I wanted to. It was. I wanted to link pleasure to do this.
Right.
And now it's pleasurable, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, boxing, it should be pleasurable. After a while, once you learn the art and you become one with it, it's so pleasurable.
Right.
Put music on, you go to the beat sometimes, you change. It's great. I love it till this day, so I'm glad I'm able to
What else
train
can we...
you.
Yes, no, you're magnificent. Yeah, everybody should take his class.
Yeah, come on down. Strong Island Boxing, Shirley, Long Island. Come on down. Even if you're traveling, come stop by. But, yeah, so Danny, I know you also did some work with Tony Robbins.
Yes. So I took a lot of trainings with Tony Robbins and went to work for a company who used to teach Tony Robbins trainers.
Right.
Or coaches, right? Because Tony Robbins, he teaches the seminar, but the coaching is done by other people.
Right.
And this has something to do with the introspection, right? So, and goal setting.
Yes.
And that's something I do with people all the time, So I meet up with people all the time and I help them set up the goals that, they have something to accomplish. And then I help them visualize or find out what are the walls.
Right.
Okay. And that's where the values things come in.
Okay.
Because values determine the direction of your life, So just to give you an example, if you value health unconsciously, these are not conscious. Okay. So unconscious meaning like this is the thought behind the thought. This is not something you consciously think about. But if you value health, right? And then you value family at the same time, right? and let's say your family gets together every night and eats, not the most healthy food, then you're gonna have a conflict,
Right.
So you say, "Oh, I value health," I'm trying to be healthy or slimmer or healthier in general, right? And healthy. Now I decided I'm gonna value health, but you also value family, okay? And then your family eats, very European or Italian style. It's gonna be really hard.
Right.
So you're gonna have a conflict of values. You see, so you'll usually get the one that is more valuable to you, and obviously family is very big within ingrained in us. So you're gonna procrastinate.
Right.
So sometimes just even by taking those, values that are unconscious into awareness helps.
Right.
Okay. So, I see. Okay. So where does these values come from also? They could come from your society. They can come from, like in America, freedom is a big value,
Yes.
And then now that during COVID, the people are struggling because, I can't do what I want.
Or restricted.
Yeah, so our values are also changed with times. Like now, and we're in very political correct times, right? So this value of freedom is out there. So people get very upset. What do you mean I cannot say whatever I want to say? You know what I mean? What do I mean I have to be politically correct? So just sometimes it's good to do some digging and say, well, where is this coming from? Does it come from my family? Does it come from my society?
Right.
Does it come from? So that's a lot of the things that Tony Robbins does.
And now let me ask you a question. So values, how could values help someone? Like if I did some digging and I realized what my values were, how could that help me?
Well, they determine your outcome, determine what you do with your life. So it determines what decisions are you going to make.
Right.
Okay, so I know you
for
quite a while. I know family is important to you.
Absolutely.
Right? So family, health and fitness is important to you, and business is important to you. So they're like in your values, you see. So if you have to make a decision between a business, right? I have to be in this business, okay, far away from my family. I know that family weighs a lot, so you might not make that business decision.
Right.
Okay, so but values also have a hierarchy. So it's very important to be aware of what you value the most, because I see values like things, you have your phone, you have a pen, you have your jacket, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So which one are you going to grab in which situation? Well, I'm sure you're not going to live without your phone.
Right.
Okay, so that's the one thing you value the most, right? I mean, you might leave the jacket if it's sunny out, you might leave the pen if you don't really need to sign anything, right? But so that's the same thing. So if you don't know what your values are, if your values are given by your society or they're given by your family and you're unconscious of it, you will loop around through life not accomplishing much.
Right.
Or not accomplishing, that's not correct. Not accomplishing what you want to accomplish.
Right. Your end game, your goal, your ultimate goal. You won't be, you'll keep the rat race you told me the other day.
Yeah,
like
so you're in this loop. Yeah, you're in this endless loop. There are values that you move towards and ones that you move away from. So, for example, for a lot of people who don't come from money, they, when they think about, and if they want to move out of poverty, that is a moving away value. They're not thinking about abundance. They're thinking, I just don't want to be poor. And if you concentrate on something all the time, you usually tend to experience it again.
Right.
Okay. So as opposed of like when you move towards something, if you, for a lot of people who are healthy, the health freaks, right? They don't really think so much about health in general. They just think about, I have a family member who died of cancer, so I don't want to be sick like that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a moving away value.
Away value.
Right. So I suppose of like, I want to feel healthy because it makes, drinking the spinach juice makes me feel good. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. So someone who links, say, fitness and health to the moving away thought or emotion, should they, if you're listening to this, should they acknowledge that and try to change that? You know what I mean?
I mean, it could help.
Should they try to change that emotion to something more positive? Why they do it?
Yeah, I think what happened with moving away values is that we usually tend to get in life what we focus on consistently.
Right.
Okay, so if you focus on consistently in building this podcast had no choice but to be.
Absolutely.
Okay, if you consistently focus on building a bicep,
Yeah.
you have no choice but the bicep to be built. So same thing when even though you're taking all the actions of being healthy, if you start thinking, oh, am I gonna get sick? This is gonna get me sick, or that is gonna get me sick, so I want to avoid it. You're still thinking about what could get you sick, and the mind is really powerful. You know what I mean? You could eat the most healthy food, but you still will get sick.
Yes.
So, and that is the same thing happens with money, or with anything, with relationships, with work. It pays better to think positively.
Right. So be conscious of your thoughts. Try to change them to be more positive so you have better outcomes.
Right.
If you're a negative thinker, you should absolutely work on being more positive, because what you think is what you become.
Yes. And the first step is to be conscious, right? The second step is just to get rid of the root emotion unconsciously, and that's why meditation, Tony Robbins, he does a lot of this timeline therapy, which you go back into this past event, and release the negative emotions. So that's a lot of the things I do. It's, I think it helps. So I do that all the time. Sometimes first of all, we have only a few words for emotions. Okay. So we have fear, anger, sadness, guilt. But we experience way more emotions that we don't even have any names or words for it. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it pays to really learn how to meditate, and do certain type of meditations to get rid of those emotions that we didn't even have a name for,
Right.
I like to sometimes, when I feel certain emotions, I like to blow them in a balloon, an imaginary balloon. Mm-hmm. And I hold it, and then I tie it up, and then, it flies, and I hold it tight,
right.
And then, until I feel the emotion a lot, and then just cut it off, and it flies away. That's awesome. That's kind of a meditation that I do. This little thing, that really help you changing your breathing, and, help you
think better.
Think of what, say it, and imagine it and feel it the way you want it.
Right.
I think that's the secret.
And I find that praying for me is my meditation.
Right.
Because even though I'm praying to my higher power, I'm also subconsciously working on those thoughts that I want for myself, programming my subconscious.
Right.
And we talked about that. See, I never knew that I was even doing these things. But you had mentioned to me about the subconscious and programming subconscious. And I did read a little bit here and there about that. But you also put me onto a book by Carl Jung.
Yes.
Called, what is it?
Man and His Symbols.
That's right.
Yes.
And I actually read 30 pages. And in those 30 pages, it absolutely just opens your mind to wow, your subconscious does so much.
Yes.
Has so much power. And if people don't know about it, they're missing out.
Yeah. I think the subconscious mind is, and I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist.
Right, no.
But I know my own subconscious mind really well because I spent my life, trying to figure out what was in there.
Right.
Okay. So, and I think the power is in the unconscious. Because it's like boxing. You cannot think consciously about boxing ever. No. You have through repetition, you have to install this habit, until you perfect it and you able to actually
execute
it during duress.
Right.
Okay. So it's the same thing. So I think it's important to understand one's subconscious
for their life. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're talking about boxing, and I just wanted to interject because that's one thing that's to me so beautiful about boxing is that you train there's already a science for years. You have a camp for 8 to 12 week camp working on the same stuff over and over again, so that you said unconsciously or subconscious. What is it? Unconsciously.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Subconscious, unconscious mind.
It just happens during the rest. The movements that you did through camp, you push so hard. And when you were able to execute it during that competition in duress, that to me is beautiful. Yeah. And that's why I think people fall in love with that sport, because they're like, wow, they look so good. 12 rounds, they look like sharp technicians, but they don't realize, well, I'm sure a lot of them do, fans, real fans, they realize the hard work that goes into it and they appreciate it.
Right.
And boxing is a great, I guess, analogy for this.
Yeah, it's
for
a great
this.
analogy. Yes.
Yeah.
I think any activity that requires you to just perform under stress, okay, like surfing, you have to really go.
Which you do.
So you have to really go unconscious. But I know you don't have to really take all the hard training. You could just really visualize.
Yeah.
So, and visualize is just to change the image of the future. So what we did was just like really, you unconsciously had an image or didn't have any image of what's going to happen at the end of this podcast.
Right.
So I gave you one. I didn't give you one. I'm sorry.
Right.
You pick one on your own.
Yeah.
Okay. But then pick one on the one that you thought will get you to success, which is like, I'm calm. It ended. It worked out great. We had a great conversation.
Yep.
And then when you know how things end, right? While we are in this struggle, all you have to do is to remember the future.
That's it.
Okay.
You know what I imagined? I imagined I was at home on my stoop flying my drone.
Right.
It's a peaceful, activity.
Right.
And I saw myself in the future doing that, so it was able to relax.
And I do that all the time with everything. Whenever I'm nervous about something, I just imagine myself. I'm at the end, I'm having a great conversation or whatever.
Right.
And I see it the way I want it. Is it, that's a work 100% of the, sometimes things don't work. But when you focus on what you want, okay,
Right.
it's very likely that you get what you want.
Absolutely.
Because you see, I think right before here, I was just like Googling how many information you get drop into your brain every second. And I couldn't find an actual number, but it's over 2 billion bits of information.
Wow.
Okay. So, and then in which you can only grab consciously about 7 plus or minus 2 bits.
Wow.
So, unconsciously, I think it's over 100, right? So your unconscious mind had a bigger range because you're talking to me, you hear my voice, but you also, listening to
The audio.
the audio, and then you see me, but you also see in the cameras, a lot of the things, or you imagining so many things. Is this true? You're talking to yourself. There's so many things that are happening. But the ones that you focus on, like if you focus in my voice, right, that's the one that you get.
Right.
So when I usually help people set goals, right, and we do this, we find their values, right? I help them set specific goals. We do vision boards. We do a certain amount. We find out, like if they want clients, we find out what kind of specific client they want, and we create a vision board for this client. Who is this person? Where did she go to school? How much money does she make? A lot of very specific things. Most likely this person finds out that, oh my God, the client was in front of me all the time. Or they say, oh, I manifested the client.
Right.
But it's not that they manifested. It's very likely that it was in the vicinity, but this person wasn't aware because they didn't even know what the client was.
Right.
And that's one of the things I did in sales, that I help people, wait a second, I created my own vision board about who was my client, what do I want? And then, I didn't want to link pain to selling, which is, the word to sell is to serve, really just helping somebody solve a problem.
Right.
So I wouldn't pitch my idea to the person who wasn't my client because I didn't want to hear any no's. But when I knew the person who needed my service,
Right.
I knew who this person was because I already have studied, that when it was in front of me, there was no doubt, but just to talk to them and say, listen, you can't leave because I'm your solution.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So that's important. It's important to really dig in within to actually create some sort of a vision of your outcome or what you want.
Right.
And that's the secret of really everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. I feel like, subconsciously or not knowing, but I feel like I've practiced a lot of these things, just not even knowing it, realizing it. But I love it. I love talking about it. I love reading about it. I don't know why. It just intrigues me.
Right.
And I love our conversations we have. They're always deep and they're always, uplifting.
I remember,
motivating.
Yes, I remember that we talked about this a few years ago, and we had this when you were a unique, and then you were building your vision board. and about your new business, and now the business is here.
Right.
You see, and you're doing phenomenal. I mean,
Thank
like
you.
you have so many students just right away, just picked
right
up.
away.
Like, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe wholeheartedly in vision boards.
Yeah.
I should create more, but I created that one vision board, and even though I feel like 90% of the stuff on the vision board I didn't get or achieve, just having a vision board puts you on the right path. I feel like that's more of what it's really about, right?
Yes, and also you have to be specific. So the things that you didn't get is because you weren't specific enough.
Right.
You have to be very specific.
Right. Well, there was a lot on there, so you have to. I could only focus on a few.
Right, exactly.
That's why you were telling me always to recreate your vision boards.
Yes, you have to do it all the time. The other thing I do is that I like to think small.
Right.
So as opposed of like, if you have this big goal, okay, and then you say, oh, I'm gonna just have this huge goal that I'm gonna achieve. So it requires a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of money, and I go all in.
Yeah.
Like the Tony Robbins approaches, I think he likes to say massive action. And if you go into massive action and you fail,
Right.
okay, now you are in your mind, you're a failure.
Right.
You will never take another enterprise this big. So I don't like that approach. Me personally,
Right.
I'm sure Tony Robbins does really well in this massive action business, but I just think that didn't work for me. So I like to think baby steps.
Okay.
So what I do is that, well, okay, I'm gonna do something small, like, I'm gonna take a little boxing class. That's how I started. That was great. You know what I mean? And you do it consistently.
Right.
And eventually, you see, with the value of compounding, this thing explodes into this big thing.
Absolutely.
So, and that's why I think what I was saying before, like books are usually breaking into chapters, for you to actually, be able to digest them. So big goals are really hard to achieve, but if you have little steps towards a big goal, right, and then you have to see them and you do vision boards as you go along, they become really doable.
Anything.
Even from like, I don't really know, surf a big wave, boxing class, or doing what, for me, now building things,
Right.
It started like that. Okay, I didn't know, because I didn't know what was different between a
drill bit to a screwdriver.
yeah, and none of that.
That's great, man, that you did that. That's awesome. And you showed me some of your work, and it looks like you hired a professional contractor to do it. So, anything you really do, I already know you already master it. So,
thank you.
Good for you.
I think that's the real secret, and that's why I think vision boards and introspection is very important.
Right. And action.
Yeah, so action will come, you see, because when you do introspection, when you really do introspection, that you just really, well, this is who I am and this is what I want, I think our heart will move towards love.
Right.
Okay, so that's why, young kids like my neighbors and their kids, now they're going to college, and then they've been asking me, so what should I study? And I always say, do something you love, because everything takes hard work. Right, but if you're doing something that you hate for 5 minutes, it just takes forever.
Absolutely.
Right, but if you do something you love for like 10 hours, then all of a sudden, boom, it's effortlessly.
And it's not work at that point.
Right. So I think when you do introspection to find out, well, okay, what is my heart? What do I want? Okay, then you will take action because, okay, this is what I want. Like you wanted to do the podcast.
Yeah.
Now people will say you're crazy because you're doing boxing, you're so successful. Why would you do something different? And I say, well, you went inside, and then oh, I want this.
Yeah.
You see. So now that you do what you love, right? All you have to do is a vision board, and then action, because we are addicted. It's like alcohol.
Yeah.
We're addicted to pleasure. You see, that's why it's so hard to get rid of like things that are like instantly give you pleasure. It's magical. Yeah. If you find pleasure, you live a pleasure-driven life.
Yeah.
Okay, or it will give you happiness. But the happiness comes first. I don't know if you know the difference between pleasure and happiness.
Break it down.
Okay, so happiness is within.
Okay.
Pleasure is without, from outside.
Right.
So when you are within, you find, okay, this is what I want, then you go to the pleasure of, what's out.
Right.
So I have this deep desire to connect with people, like I feel like you do, through this podcast.
Absolutely.
So then, the pleasure will give you having this conversation,
Right.
Practicing with me, then talking to others,
Absolutely.
like important people eventually.
You're important, man. You're important.
Trust me, I'm not. But
Well, having you, a part of my life the past couple of years has been inspiring. So you are important.
Oh, thanks,
You're important to me, and I appreciate you. I
very
appreciate
kind.
your wife too. You guys come
we
here.
should have a drink.
Yes. Cheers. Coffee, by the way. So first off, I want to say thank you for being on my show. Okay. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. I was actually really looking forward to this, and it went just as I thought, perfectly. We're going to have you back on eventually in the future. We'll talk some other stuff. But I just want to say thank you for coming to the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's it, guys. So thank you for tuning in to episode 2. Thank you for my guest, Daniel DeBlois, for coming down and having this great conversation. And if you guys want to learn more about Danny or maybe even engage with him, all the information is below in the description. And you guys be well, be safe, and stay tuned for the next episode.